So what is literally the absolute worst mistake you can make when you spot a brand new, ugly stain on your pristine pool plaster? I mean, is it scrubbing it too hard? Is it draining the pool? Taking a jackhammer to it?
Actually, it's treating a metal stain with chlorine. We see this all the time. A homeowner spots a dark, rusty spot on the bottom of their pool, totally panics, and dumps a massive shock of chlorine right on top of it. And then they just watch in horror as the stain actually gets darker. There's a simple reason for that. Chlorine oxidizes metals. So instead of cleaning the stain, you're driving that metal deeper into the porous plaster, essentially locking it in for good. It is the exact wrong tool for the job. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're digging into the Splash Pro Pool's Guide to Pool Stain Diagnosis and Cure, which is specifically tailored for San Diego homeowners. We're going to treat your pool exactly like a patient today, because before we prescribe any heavy chemicals or, talk about super expensive acid washes, we absolutely need to properly diagnose the issue, treat the specific condition, and put a bulletproof prevention plan in place. Okay, let's dive right in. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're starting with the 30-second diagnosis, followed by defeating organic pool stains and removing metal and rust. After that, we'll look at the San Diego stain factor, and we'll wrap the whole thing up with prevention and pro fixes. All right, section 1, the 30-second diagnosis. We need to identify the stain fast, because honestly, before you even think about pouring a single drop of chemicals into your water, you have to figure out exactly what kind of stain is ruining your pool. Fortunately, you really don't need a degree in chemistry to figure this out. You just need a brilliant, incredibly simple field test. Step 1, take a standard chlorine tablet, hold it directly against the stain for about 30 seconds, and pull it away. If the spot underneath is noticeably lighter, bingo, you've got an organic stain. But what if absolutely nothing happens? Well, then you move to step 2. Crush up a simple vitamin C tablet. Yeah, literally the exact same kind you take for a cold, and hold that powder against the stain. If it lifts and clears under the vitamin C, you're dealing with a metal stain. This one simple test saves so many people from permanently setting a stain into their plaster can. This perfectly breaks down our two distinct stain families. First, organic stains. These are generally your greens, your browns, reddish browns, basically anything coming from nature, like leaves, algae, or acorns. For these, chlorine is your ultimate fix. On the flip side, metal stains are your blue-greens, grays, and rust-oranges. These come from dissolved copper, hard water, or rusting equipment. Chlorine is the enemy here. Vitamin C is the absolute cure. So matching the color and that 30-second test to the cause dictates your exact treatment plan. Now that we know how to identify our enemy, let's look at specific treatments. Section 2, defeating organic pool stains with the shock and brush fix. Just to be incredibly clear here, organic stains are simply surface discoloration caused by plant matter. Think about a wet leaf sitting on your concrete driveway for, say, a week. When you finally peel it up, there's that stubborn brown outline left behind, right? That's exactly what's happening on your pool plaster when leaves, berries, or algae settle on the bottom, start breaking down, and basically bake into the surface. So how do we destroy this decaying organic matter? We use a shock and brush rhythm. First, you balance the water. Then you raise the free chlorine well above normal with a really strong shock dose. But listen, you can't just walk away. You have to brush the stained area firmly right after dosing. Why? Because brushing physically breaks up the sealed-over surface of the stain, exposing fresh layers of that organic matter directly to the high chlorine you just added. Finally, keep that pump and filter running continuously so all that lifted debris actually gets caught in the filter instead of just settling right back down somewhere else. Let's transition to the second pathway. Section 3, removing metal and rust. Vitamin C to the rescue. These are the tricky, stubborn stains that lead a lot of homeowners to think their pool surface is completely ruined. But it's usually not. Because chlorine actually fights this treatment, your very first step is to lower your free chlorine. Then you broadcast ascorbic acid, which is really just plain old vitamin C powder, over the water, or you can sprinkle it directly onto a concentrated stain. You will literally watch the stain lift in minutes. It's kind of like magic. But right after it lifts, you must add a liquid metal sequestrant immediately. After that, run your filter continuously. And absolutely make sure to clean the filter out afterward, because it is now holding all that metal you just lifted off the walls. Now, the most crucial point is this. Do not skip the sequestrant. Ascorbic acid is amazing at lifting the metal off the wall and putting it back into the water. But if you don't trap it, that metal is just going to float around and stain the plaster all over again the second the vitamin C wears off. A sequestrant physically binds to the dissolved metal in the water. It holds it in this chemical lock so your filter can actually catch it and carry it completely out of the pool. So what about rust? Well, rust is simply a metal stain, but it comes with a physical source. You treat the stain exactly the same way with vitamin C and a sequestrant, but if you don't actually remove the source, it's just going to come back tomorrow. The source could be a super easy fix, like a dropped bobby pin, a random screw, or a kid's toy just sitting on the floor. Or it might be a failing corroding light fitting. More seriously though, if a rust spot keeps returning in the exact same spot with nothing sitting on it, it usually means the steel rebar underneath your plaster is bleeding through. And that brings us to section 4, the San Diego stain factor, because geography totally matters. If you live in San Diego, you probably feel like you're fighting an uphill battle with pool stains, and there's a very specific environmental reason for that. Think about this massive number. 250 to 400 parts per million. That represents San Diego's incredibly hard tap water. Now, why does this matter to you? Because every single time the hot sun evaporates water out of your pool and you top it off with the garden hose, you aren't just adding water. You are pumping 250 to 400 parts per million of dissolved minerals and metals straight into your pool. You're literally feeding the pool the exact ingredients required to create gray and rust stains. And honestly, your specific zip code dictates your primary stain enemy. If you live out in East County or the inland areas, your pool is likely sitting under big oaks, sycamores, or eucalyptus trees. These drop tannin and heavy debris directly into the water, meaning you are fighting a non-stop war against organic stains. But if you live in the coastal regions, you have way less leaf drop, but tons of wind-blown grit and heavy salt air. And that salt air actively corrodes metal equipment and fittings, meaning coastal homeowners are constantly battling metal stains. So, how do we stop playing backyard chemist every weekend? Let's move to our final section, Section 5, Prevention and Pro Fixes. Let's stop the stain cycle. We all know prevention is infinitely cheaper than treatment. First things first, keep your water balanced. Proper pH and alkalinity naturally hold metals in solution and prevent the kind of scale that traps stains. Second, run a metal sequestrant on a regular, year-round schedule, especially right after you've added that hard tap water from the hose. Treating your fill water is hands down your single best defense. Third, brush the entire pool weekly so debris and early stains never get a chance to set into the pores of the plaster. And finally, just empty your skimmer baskets and skim those leaves before they have a chance to sink and rot on the floor. But hey, what if you've done everything right? You matched the color, you did the 30-second test, you ran the perfect chemical treatment, and the stain barely even faded. Well, if that happens, it means the discoloration is no longer on the plaster, it is soaked deep into the plaster. At this point, no amount of vitamin C or chlorine is going to save you. The structural integrity of the surface is compromised. This is that clear boundary where the backyard chemistry ends, and it's time to call a local San Diego pro to look at physically stripping the top layer with an acid wash, or maybe even completely resurfacing the pool. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider the next time you're standing out there looking at your pool. Are you treating the symptom or the source? Because pouring random chemicals over a dark spot is just treating a symptom. And usually, it just makes things worse. But when you really understand that hard water coming from your hose, the trees towering above your deck, and the actual chemical reaction happening on your plaster, you can finally stop fighting those symptoms and eliminate the source for good. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and here's to a crystal clear pool.